Imagine being in the middle of chaos, pressures mounting, deadlines looming, people shouting, and yet you're calm, not indifferent, not disengaged. Calm, that's not a fantasy, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, refined, and mastered. Training your mind to be calm in every situation isn't about pretending things don't bother you. It's about building a mindset strong enough to choose peace over panic. The mind is like a muscle. It responds to how we use it. Most people train their minds to be reactive. They practice worry, they rehearse stress, and they repeat anxiety. What they don't realize is they're doing mental reps in the wrong gym. If you want to build calm, you have to practice calm. Calm isn't a personality trait, it's a discipline. And discipline is not built when things are going well, it's built in the middle of friction. Every stressful situation you face is an opportunity to train your nervous system to respond, not react. Let's start with the truth: the world won't slow down. There will always be uncertainty, always be problems, always be people who frustrate you. So the question is not, how can I control everything? But how can I control myself when things get out of control? This begins with awareness. Most people feel stress and get pulled by it. Calm people feel stress and notice it. That moment of noticing creates the space to choose. It creates a pause. And in that pause, you regain your power. You stop being a puppet to your emotions and start being a leader to your mind. Breathing is underrated. It's free, simple, and always available. Yet most people don't use it. Deep, slow breathing is the nervous system's signal to relax. When you breathe with intention, you activate the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking. It's not just about oxygen, it's about control. In a crisis, your breath is the remote control to your mind. Another powerful tool is reframing. Most people see challenges as threats, but calm thinkers learn to see challenges as tests. A test is temporary, a test is solvable, a test is an opportunity to prove what you've prepared for. This shift in perspective transforms fear into focus. And here's the hard truth: calm isn't built in the moment of panic. It's built in the moments before it. What are your habits? What do you feed your mind? Who do you surround yourself with? If your daily life is full of noise, distraction, and negativity, your brain will mirror that. But if you build moments of stillness, clarity, and learning into your day, your brain will carry that calm into your storms. Every calm person you've admired has been through storms. They've been tested, and they've trained themselves to hold their ground. Calm is not the absence of stress. It is the mastery of it. So train your mind daily with awareness, with breath, with reframing, with intention, not to avoid the storm, but to become the one who walks through it with grace. 5 keynotes of the speech: calm is a trainable skill, not an inborn trait. It is built through consistent mental discipline and self-awareness. Reactiveness is habitual. If we want to become calm, we must consciously retrain our mind to respond instead of react. The practice of intentional breathing and creating mental space between stimulus and response helps regain control during stress. Reframing situations from threats to challenges transforms fear into focus and empowers calm thinking. True calm is not created in crisis, but in daily habits. Our environment, routines, and mindset prepare us for emotional resilience. Calm is a trainable skill, not an inborn trait. It is built through consistent mental discipline and self-awareness. Many people believe that calmness is something you either have or you don't. They look at someone composed under pressure and assume they were born that way. But that's not how it works. Calm is not a personality feature embedded at birth. It is a mental state cultivated through repeated practice, conscious choice, and reflection. The person who seems unshaken in a crisis hasn't avoided stress. They've spent time learning how to navigate it. What you're witnessing in calm individuals is not luck or genetic advantage, but the result of training, often done quietly and privately long before the crisis appeared. Every human mind is capable of reacting emotionally, impulsively, and irrationally. That's the default programming, our fight or flight response designed to protect us. But when you begin to observe your own mental responses, when you become aware of your inner world in real time, you can begin to interrupt the automatic patterns that create anxiety and overreaction. That awareness is the foundation of mental discipline. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending nothing affects you. It's about creating a tiny gap between what happens to you and how you respond to it. That gap doesn't appear on its own. It has to be built. The process of becoming calm starts with noticing. The average person moves through life reacting without much thought. A situation unfolds and they respond on autopilot, but calm individuals train themselves to pause. That pause is powerful. It allows space for reflection, analysis, and choice. In that space, the mind is no longer hijacked by panic or frustration. Instead, it becomes focused, measured, and intentional. This skill isn't built by reading about it or listening to talks. It's built through lived experience. Every stressful moment becomes a training ground. And the more you engage with this discipline, the more natural it becomes. You don't build calm in a rush. Just as you wouldn't expect to become physically strong after one trip to the gym, you can't expect emotional strength without consistent effort. Mental discipline is something that requires repetition. It's a practice, daily, simple, and focused. Maybe it begins with a short breathing exercise each morning. Maybe it's journaling your emotional triggers and tracking how you respond. Over time, these small habits accumulate. They strengthen your awareness, deepen your patience, and improve your emotional resilience. Self-awareness plays a vital role in this process. If you don't understand your stress patterns, what provokes you, what rattles your thinking, what situations make you lose your cool. You can't manage them effectively. Self-awareness means observing your thoughts without judgment. It means watching your mind the same way a coach watches a player, noticing where it trips, where it excels, and where it needs improvement. When you develop this internal observer, you stop being fully identified with your emotional reactions. You start recognizing them as patterns you can adjust, not permanent features you must accept. One of the most empowering shifts a person can make is realizing that calm is not the result of external circumstances being ideal. Calm is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of inner stability in the face of those problems. Life is unpredictable, and it will always be filled with uncertainty. Waiting for everything to align before you find peace is a recipe for frustration. The discipline of calm teaches you to become the anchor rather than looking for one. This shift transforms how you move through the world. You stop needing everything to go your way. You stop being controlled by other people's chaos. You become the one who brings clarity to confusion, not because you're immune to emotion, but because you've trained yourself to master it. This training isn't glamorous. It's often done in quiet moments, when you choose not to argue, when you choose to breathe instead of snap, when you choose to listen rather than react. Each of those moments rewires your mind to trust itself under pressure. And over time, that trust grows into calm. You no longer fear stress because you've conditioned your mind to handle it. You've become disciplined not just in your thoughts, but in your presence. That presence is what others feel when they say, "You're always so calm." But now you know. It wasn't natural, it was trained, it was earned, and it's available to anyone willing to practice. Reactiveness is habitual. If we want to become calm, we must consciously retrain our mind to respond instead of react. Most people don't realize that their reactions are not spontaneous acts of instinct, but well-rehearsed behaviors formed over years of repetition. Our brains learn through experience. The more we react to stress, to fear, to criticism, the more we strengthen those neural pathways. Over time, these become our defaults. We react before we think. We lash out before we pause. We retreat before we understand. And every time we do it, we're reinforcing a habit loop. Stimulus, reaction, repeat. This is why change feels so hard. We're not just facing a moment of pressure. We're confronting years of mental conditioning. Our minds crave shortcuts. Reactiveness is a shortcut. It's easier and faster than reflection. When something threatens our sense of control or identity, our brain often bypasses rational processing and dives straight into emotional defense. That's how arguments escalate. That's how misunderstandings spiral. That's how small setbacks become full-blown crises. The problem is not the situation. It's how we've trained ourselves to handle it. And the good news is what was learned can be unlearned. If we've trained our mind to react, we can also train it to respond. Responding means we take ownership of that space between what happens and how we act. That space is where our power lives. But most people give it away. They hand it to stress, to ego, to fear. Learning to respond instead of react means choosing to slow down when your mind speeds up. It means developing the capacity to sit with discomfort without letting it control your behavior. This isn't natural at first. The reactive brain will scream for a fast exit. It will demand instant action, yell back, shut down, blame someone else. But every time you resist that pull, you are weakening the reactive habit and strengthening the responsive one. This kind of mental retraining requires intention. It doesn't happen when you're busy living on autopilot. You have to catch your reactions in real time. That might look like noticing a rising anger before it becomes words. It might be observing your anxiety before it turns into avoidance. And once you've noticed it, you need to pause. That pause doesn't have to be long. Sometimes 3 seconds is all it takes. But within that pause, something powerful happens. You choose. You choose not to follow the old path. You choose to stay with the feeling long enough to understand it. You choose to be intentional rather than impulsive. A mind trained to respond doesn't suppress emotion, it channels emotion. You don't pretend to be calm, you become calm because you're not at war with what you feel. You've built the strength to feel fully without reacting destructively. That's what emotional maturity looks like. And emotional maturity isn't about age, it's about practice. It's about consistency. It's about taking small moments each day to act from values rather than from emotional noise. Even small actions compound over time. Maybe it starts with you biting your tongue in a tense conversation and choosing to listen instead. Maybe it's breathing slowly when you feel panic setting in. Maybe it's taking a walk instead of sending that angry message. These may seem minor, but they rewire the brain. Each time you respond instead of react, you're building a different identity, a person who leads themselves instead of being led by emotion. This retraining process doesn't make you emotionless. In fact, it makes you more emotionally intelligent. You begin to see the root of your reactions. You recognize when you're being triggered, and you get curious about why. Over time, that curiosity transforms into self-awareness. And self-awareness becomes your compass in high-pressure moments. You stop seeing every challenge as a threat. You start seeing them as tests of your training. The reactive person says, "I can't help it. That's just how I am." The responsive person says, "This is difficult, but I have a choice." That mindset shift is everything. We often admire those who stay composed in adversity, not realizing the invisible work behind that composure. They didn't become calm by accident. They trained for it. They noticed their triggers, sat with their discomfort, and made hundreds of small decisions to respond differently. And over time, their brain learned that calm isn't weakness, it's wisdom in motion. Reactiveness is loud and fast. Response is quiet and powerful. One keeps you stuck, the other moves you forward, and training your mind to respond is how that transformation begins. The practice of intentional breathing and creating mental space between stimulus and response helps regain control during stress. In stressful situations, the body and mind are designed to react quickly. This is a survival mechanism rooted in evolution. When danger appears, the heart rate increases, breathing becomes muscle tightened, and the brain narrows its focus. This fight or flight response is useful in true emergencies, but in daily life, it often works against us. A simple disagreement, a critical email, or an unexpected challenge can trigger the same physiological responses as a life-threatening event. When that happens, we lose clarity, we lose presence, and we lose our ability to make good decisions. This is where intentional breathing becomes more than just a calming technique. It becomes a tool of control. Breathing is one of the few functions in the body that is both automatic and controllable. You don't have to think to breathe, yet you can take control of it anytime you want. That makes it a powerful gateway into the nervous system. When you take slow, deep breaths, you signal safety to your brain. The heart rate slows down, the mind becomes quieter, and the space between thought and action grows wider. In that space, you are no longer reacting impulsively. You are choosing how to respond. This shift is subtle but life-changing. One breath won't change everything, but the habit of breathing intentionally in high-pressure moments builds a mindset of composure and self-mastery. When you practice intentional breathing consistently, it becomes automatic. In a crisis, you don't have to think, I should breathe now. Your body will already be trained to respond with calm. This doesn't mean stress disappears. It means you're equipped to manage it instead of being consumed by it. You're not avoiding the problem. You're creating the mental clarity to face it effectively. This mental clarity is often the difference between emotional chaos and grounded decision-making. Stressful moments cloud judgment, but when you create mental space through the breath, you allow your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, to come back online. That's when problem solving improves. That's when communication becomes clearer. That's when you stop making things worse and start making progress. Creating mental space isn't just about breathing, it's about delaying your reaction just long enough to gain perspective. That delay, however small, allows you to see the bigger picture. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about regulating them so they don't dictate your behavior. In heated moments, the urge to act immediately is strong, but immediate action isn't always wise. Creating space gives you the freedom to choose not just what to do, but who you want to be in that moment. It shifts your focus from survival to intention. You become less driven by emotion and more guided by clarity. This practice is not reserved for monks or mindfulness experts. It's available to anyone willing to pause, breathe, and reflect. It begins with noticing your breath when things are calm. Then, gradually, you bring that awareness into more challenging moments. It could be during a conversation where emotions run high. It could be when you receive bad news. It could be in the middle of a busy day when your mind starts to race. In those moments, the decision to take one intentional breath is the beginning of reclaiming control. Over time, those decisions stack up. They build resilience. They create a new normal where stress is no longer something that overwhelms you, but something you navigate with steadiness. There's science behind this as well. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for rest and recovery. This counteracts the fight or flight response, calming your body and allowing your brain to access higher level thinking. Even a simple technique like the 4-7-8 breath, inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8, can reset your nervous system in less than a minute. The goal isn't to eliminate stress from your life. The goal is to remain centered when stress shows up. People often underestimate how powerful this is. They think calmness means indifference. But true calm is a product of strength, not passivity. It takes discipline to pause. It takes awareness to breathe. It takes courage to resist the urge to react. And in that resistance, in that brief moment of stillness, you're doing more than calming yourself. You're transforming the way you interact with the world. You're no longer at the mercy of your environment. You're operating from your values, your vision, and your awareness. And it all begins with a breath. Reframing situations from threats to challenges transforms fear into focus and empowers calm thinking. The way we interpret a situation determines how we feel about it, and how we feel about it shapes how we respond. Two people can face the exact same obstacle. One panics, the other stays calm. The difference isn't in the event itself, but in the meaning they assign to it. When we see a situation as a threat, our mind immediately enters defense mode. Our thoughts narrow, our heartbeat rises, and our brain starts searching for an escape. But when we choose to reframe the same situation as a challenge, something shifts. Instead of feeling powerless, we begin to feel capable. Instead of shutting down, we engage. Reframing is not denial, it's direction. It takes our energy and redirects it from fear into action. The power of reframing lies in its simplicity. The external world is what it is, but our internal world can change in an instant with a different perspective. Imagine walking into a room to give a presentation. If your inner voice says, if I mess up, everyone will judge me, your body tightens, your confidence drops, and your focus scatters. That's a threat frame. Now imagine if your inner voice said, This is a chance to share something valuable. The room, the audience, and the expectations are the same. But now your energy is calmer, your mind more centered, and your performance more effective. You haven't changed the world. You've changed how you're meeting it. Most people don't question their first interpretation of events. They feel anxiety and assume it's a warning. They experience difficulty and assume something is wrong. But calm thinkers pause long enough to ask, is there another way to see this? That question is the beginning of reframing. It invites the mind to zoom out and look again. Often, what feels like a crisis is actually a challenge in disguise, and challenges are manageable. They have solutions. They invite growth. When we frame something as a challenge, we stop fearing it and start preparing for it. Reframing is not pretending things are easy. It's recognizing that struggle can have purpose. It's realizing that stress doesn't always mean danger. It might mean you care. It might mean you're being stretched. And being stretched is part of every worthwhile pursuit. Athletes understand this instinctively. They don't see pressure as a threat. They see it as a test of preparation. They reframe fear into focus. Leaders who remain composed in crisis do the same. They don't ignore problems. They frame them in ways that activate problem solving rather than panic. This mental skill doesn't come naturally at first. In moments of stress, our brain defaults to survival thinking. It exaggerates danger and underestimates our ability to cope. That's why reframing must be practiced deliberately. It starts with noticing the story your mind is telling you. Are you telling yourself that you can't handle this, that everything is falling apart? Or can you pause and ask, what is this teaching me? What strength is this building? How can I use this? Those aren't positive affirmations. They are reframing questions designed to pull you out of fear and into responsibility. When we consistently reframe, our emotional responses start to shift. We become less reactive because we're no longer driven by the belief that everything difficult is dangerous. Instead, we start to build confidence in our ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow. That confidence creates calm, not because we think everything will be easy, but because we know we have the tools to handle what comes. It's important to understand that reframing doesn't mean ignoring pain or bypassing hardship. It means stepping into those experiences with a different lens. Pain still hurts, challenges still test us. But instead of seeing those moments as evidence that we're failing, we begin to see them as invitations to level up. A setback isn't the end, it's feedback. A failure isn't final, it's formative. That shift in thinking doesn't make the path smoother, but it makes us stronger as we walk it. The calm mind is not the one that never feels pressure. It's the one that has learned how to interpret pressure differently. Reframing is the bridge between chaos and clarity. It helps us stop spiraling into what ifs and brings us back to what is. And from there, we can move forward with calm intention. Over time, reframing becomes automatic. The moment stress shows up, the mind no longer screams danger. It whispers opportunity. That's the power of trained thinking. That's how fear turns into focus. And that's how we learn to face life's hardest moments with a steadiness that doesn't come from avoiding stress, but from mastering the way we see it. True calm is not created in crisis, but in daily habits, our environment, routines, and mindset prepare us for emotional resilience. When people admire someone who remains calm under pressure, what they often miss is the preparation behind that calm. It's not a performance that begins in the middle of a stressful event. It's the result of consistent practices developed when things are quiet. Calmness is not summoned in the heat of the moment. It is cultivated slowly, built in the ordinary hours of daily life. Just like an athlete trains long before the competition, a calm mind is trained long before the chaos. Daily habits matter more than we realize. They are not just actions, they are signals to our mind about what to expect and how to operate. If your days are filled with noise, distraction, poor sleep, cluttered schedules, and reactive conversations, your mind begins to normalize overstimulation. Over time, this creates a default state of tension. When something unexpected happens, your brain is already primed to react. It doesn't have the space or stability to respond with clarity. But when your daily life includes routines that promote stillness, focus, and reflection, you are teaching your mind how to stay grounded. You are giving it a home base it can return to even when everything else feels uncertain. Environment plays a powerful role in this. Your physical space affects your mental space. A chaotic environment creates a chaotic internal rhythm. But a clean, intentional space supports a clearer mindset. This doesn't mean you need perfection or silence all the time. It means creating environments that help your nervous system feel safe and supported. It could be a few minutes of quiet each morning, a space in your home that brings you peace, or even boundaries around when and how you engage with digital noise. These small choices shape how your mind operates, especially when faced with pressure. Routine is another key component. Humans thrive on predictability. A morning routine, an evening wind down practice, or set moments for rest and reflection all contribute to emotional regulation. These routines become anchors. When life feels unpredictable, your routines remind you of what's in your control. That consistency builds trust in yourself. It tells your brain, I know what to do. I've been here before. I'm safe. In moments of external stress, you're not starting from zero. You're standing on the foundation you've built with intention. Mindset ties everything together. A calm mindset is not the absence of ambition, drive, or emotion. It's the presence of perspective. And that perspective is strengthened through how you talk to yourself, how you interpret challenges, and what you focus on each day. When your inner dialogue is full of pressure, judgment, and urgency, it creates an internal storm. But when you cultivate a mindset grounded in patience, curiosity, and self-respect, it becomes easier to remain composed when pressure rises. Mindset is shaped by repetition. What you read, who you listen to, the conversations you engage in, all of these shape your mental narrative. If you spend every day consuming fear-based media or surrounding yourself with negativity, your brain becomes wired for reactivity. But if you intentionally choose content that encourages growth, practice gratitude, reflect on your experiences, and engage with people who embody calm, your brain begins to internalize that as its new normal. Even physical habits contribute. Movement, nutrition, hydration, and rest directly affect how your mind processes stress. A tired or depleted body will always struggle to remain calm, no matter how strong the mindset is. Taking care of your physical health is not separate from emotional resilience. It's foundational to it. Your body and mind are one system, and every choice you make either strengthens or weakens your ability to stay composed under pressure. This all comes down to preparation. Calm people are not lucky. They are prepared. They've spent time building internal systems that allow them to show up fully even when things go wrong. When the storm comes, they don't panic because they've trained in stillness. They don't collapse because they've reinforced their foundation daily. That preparation isn't dramatic. It's quiet, often unnoticed by others, but it shows when life tests them. And it's available to anyone willing to show up for themselves every single day. Calm is not a gift. It is the natural result of intentional habits practiced over time. The more consistent those habits become, the more unshakable your calm will be when it matters most. Calm is not something you stumble upon in a moment of chaos. It is something you build brick by brick in the quiet moments of your daily life. It is not a personality trait reserved for the lucky or the gifted, but a trained response shaped by awareness, discipline, and intention. To train your mind to be calm in every situation is to take ownership of your internal world. It is to choose response over reaction, to pause when others panic, to breathe when everything feels heavy, and to reframe difficulty as growth. Through consistent habits, thoughtful reflection, and the willingness to see challenge as a teacher, you become the person who doesn't just survive pressure, you lead through it. That is the real power of calm. It does not remove the storms, but it teaches you how to stand steady within them.